Gastrodon already a defensive Pokemon, hard to take down in one hit, so might see a bit more of a slower start to this game, as we're seeing here with that Incineroar switch in.
Exactly, going for the protect and switch in here, just playing a little defensively on Eric's side. The Incineroar on Chongjun's side, able to catch that Incineroar once again. I believe this is playing out almost identically to how Game 2 started. Able to get the parting shot on the opposing on the Incineroar, and is able to now bring a Pokemon in from the back. If the Gastrodon decides to go for a Yawn into that Charizard slot, we will be seeing an identical play out of that Game 2, and that's exactly what's happening. I mean, it got Chongjun into that victory in Game 2, so I can completely understand why you'd be wanting to go through the same motions. Yeah,
and now Chongjun's in that position again where he's able, we know the speeds of the two Charizards here, where Chongjun's going to be able to get an attack off first. Whether or not Eric decides here to potentially go for something like the Gigantamax this turn, because he didn't go for it in that second game, he inevitably was unable to take that big attack, the big Max Rockfall. Whether or not he's able to go for the Gigantamax himself and take that, get the weakness policy boost, and then take out the Charizard the next turn. But you've got the kind of cushion here of that fake up from the Incineroar to stop the Yawn from the Gastrodon, or you've got the simple thing where you can just switch it out, get your Grimmsnarl in like he's doing, take it a bit slower, and try and get the screen set up to set that Charizard up for a later game.
Yeah, I love that thinking, actually. You know, realizing the Charizard needs to stay safe in the back in this turn. You don't want to make the same mistake again. And bringing in that Grimmsnarl that is likely going to be able to take an attack. You know, there's no Sun set up on the field as well. Solar Power is not activated on that Charizard. And like you said, Lee, set up something like the Light Screen to help that Charizard when it comes back into the battlefield, and possibly Gigantamax it then. It's going to be the G-Max Wildfire on Chongjun's side, though, going to connect onto the opposing Grimmsnarl. So I think predicting a strong switch there, knowing something was going to come in from the back. And this is such a bad situation for Eric, because it's done so much damage, and the residual damage will pick up the KO on that Grimmsnarl at the end of this turn. Once again, Incineroar going for the parting shot, catches the Charizard, but it is too little too late once again, because the damage that G-Max Wildfire did, even outside of the sun, is critical to that Grimmsnarl, and Eric is going to lose it at the end of the turn.
Yeah, and you know, it's critical for the Grimmsnarl, for Eric, to try and get that light screen support up, so he knows that the Charizard is going to be able to, potentially if you go for the Gigantamax, take an attack a bit easier so it's able to return with some big damage. Unfortunately, like you say, really good call here from Chongjun to get that Wildfire and catch the Grimmsnarl on the switch in, take that support option away from Eric. And yeah, we do see the Gastrodon go for the Yawn, but not really too. It doesn't really matter too much. I mean, the best thing here would have been to see that Yawn into the Charizard.
I was worried.
Switch in, and that would have really been difficult. But now we're back in that kind of similar situation where we've got the Charizard on Eric's side of the field, and I think he's almost forced here to go for the Gigantamax and hope that he's going to be able to take the Max Rockfall that's inevitably going to come out from Chongjun's side of the field. Take this turn to potentially get the fake out onto the Gastrodon. We've got to keep in mind that the parting shot from that Incineroar is going to be quite key, I think, into that Charizard on Chongjun's side. And maybe that is enough, that drop on the special attack is enough to allow the Charizard now to be able to take an attack. But you've got to be so careful around this Gastrodon because of that Yawn threat that it is pushing out every turn now.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Charizard going, I don't really want to face down against these two Pokemon. Let's bring Groudon onto the field. This could be dangerous, you know, setting up the Sun for something like the opposing Charizard, but thankfully for the Groudon, it's going to be going just straight for a max guard here, as Gastrodon also goes for a Protect. And this makes a lot of sense, because Eric had the potential to go for something like the Fake Out, and then a Max Rockfall into that opposing Charizard. And even if Chongjun's was faster, like you said, the parting shot could really pay off and allow Eric's Charizard to survive that hasn't got a drop and could retaliate with a Max Rockfall and pick up a KO. So really nice defensive plays from Chongjun, and Eric again in a position here where, sure, the Groudon's applying pressure, but you have now set up the Sun for that Charizard, and we've seen how much damage that Charizard can do to a Groudon.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Like, you can now, if you want, if you're Eric, you can Dynamax the Groudon, but it kind of defeats the point of taking advantage of your Charizard, which was so effective for him in that game 1, and we've seen how effective it is for Chongjun. But Eric doing a good job to not really allow Chongjun to get much of a return here. The Grimmsnarl has gone down, so that is a huge kind of turn for him. But other than that, Eric's still got 3 pretty healthy Pokemon in a position. But without the kind of light screen support here, you do worry about that Groudon. If it doesn't Dynamax here, how much damage is it really going to take from something like the Charizard with that Sun boost?
Yeah, if you're Eric right now, I would just be trying to burn through these Dynamax turns of the Charizard. Incineroar's going to go for the Fake Out, but of course it's going to fail here as Charizard goes for the G-Max Wildfire into the opposing Groudon, and it's not enough to pick up the KO, but of course the residual damage is going to be able to finish it off. It is able to retaliate with the Stone Edge, but not picking up the KO. I mean, Charizard has been kind of the highlight Pokemon throughout this entire set on both sides of the battlefield. You know, Eric piloted it so well in game 1, but then it's almost like the Charizard on Chongjun's side has gone, hey, I see what you can do, I can do it better. And it's just being so strong, picking up KOs left, right, and center. And I think Chongjun seems to be running it, you know, very, very fast and offensive.
Yeah, and now it is the end of the Gigantamax turns for Chongjun. The Charizard's done an incredible job at whittling down Eric's side of the field. But Eric now in a position where he has got that Charizard, still pretty healthy, in a position where he can Gigantamax at this turn. There's obviously active Fake Out from Chongjun's side from that Incineroar, but it's really tricky here, because does Chongjun go for an attack to proc the weakness policy on the Charizard? Probably not. You probably don't want to activate that. You probably, I think your main goal here is to try and get a parting shot into the Charizard, whereas Eric could maybe stall things out and, yeah, like we say, go for the Protect here to get around this Fake Out and try and get a parting shot onto the opposing Charizard one last turn, so you've got at least an active Fake Out to come back in to support your own Charizard when it does max.
Yeah, the HM power is actually going to go down into the opposing Incineroar, do a little bit of damage against it, and obviously work around something like the Sugar Berry. That's what I love about having the Rock-type moves on there. Incineroar's just going to do a little bit of damage with the Flare Blitz, so really in this turn, not too much damage is being dealt, except Charizard to itself, with that, you know, solar power damage as well. But this does give Chongjun a great position to bring in a Pokemon from the back. Yeah,
and now the momentum's swinging slightly more in Eric's favor. But again, it's all about, can you take down the Gastrodon? Does the Gastrodon on Chongjun's side have Protect? Because it would allow you a turn to maybe protect the Gastrodon, take a big G-Max attack from the Charizard if Eric decides to go that route, and then get a parting shot off with your Incineroar. But has the Charizard, if it does go for the Gigantamax here, got enough to target down, predict that play, get rid of the Incineroar to avoid the parting shot? But doing that, it's a double-edged sword, because then you're leaving yourself exposed to a potential yawn that could come out. It's a really difficult situation, but it's all going to be about what Eric decides to do in this one turn.
Yeah, you have to pull in all that wisdom and experience you have as a Pokemon trainer and call this turn correctly. Charizard's going to go for the max Airstream down into the opposing Incineroar. It's not enough to pick up the KO against it. It's just on about 32 hit points remaining, possibly a double up. Using that Incineroar is going to be able to, you know, close out the KO, but then that Gastrodon is going to be up to a few tricks. We see the Flare Blitz come out from the Incineroar. It is going to go into the opposing Incineroar and will get the KO, but like you said, Lee, it's this kind of catch-22. The Gastrodon is now in a prime position to go for something like the Yawn and put one of Eric's Pokemon to sleep on that following turn. All Chongjun needs now is a double Protect on this next turn, or, you know, both Pokemon to protect, and then Charizard is going to be taking a nap and not able to capitalize on the Gigantamax. Yeah,
the one thing you can say is here that, you know, the Gastrodon can protect this next turn, but if the Groudon on Chongjun's side has that Assault Vest, it's not going to have access to it. It is going to be able to take special attacks a lot better, and there's no weakness policy activated on the Charizard, but it's got one turn to get the G-Max Wildfire off, and that might be the difference here, getting it into the Groudon. Oh, and doing huge damage.
It does so much damage, and I think as well a double up will be able to close out against this opposing Groudon. You can see the Incineroar nice and speedy thanks to that Airstream boost, able to get the KO. So now it is little Gastrodon against both the Charizard and the Incineroar, and you know, Gastrodon, it may be our champion Pokemon, you know, but it's certainly got a bit of an uphill struggle here. It's going for the Earth Power into the opposing Incineroar, but it's really not able to deal out the damage thanks to that Sugar Berry. And now, you know, yes, Charizard's going to have to take a little bit of a nap, but I don't know what Gastrodon's going to be able to do here.
Yeah, normally carrying options like Earth Power, which is not going to be effective against the Charizard because of its flying type attack, and Ice Beam as well, which is not, you know, going to be hitting it for neutral damage, so not doing enough, really. And you've also got the fact is that that Airstream was timed perfectly from Eric earlier on in this game, where he's Incineroar undoubtedly will outspeed majority of things left on Chongjun's side of the field. The double up there, you identified it, making sure to get rid of the Groudon so it's not a problem anymore. And the fact here is he can go for a parting shot, but actually revealing Protect here on the Incineroar, huge reveal, and stalling out the turns, allowing Charizard the time to hopefully wake up.
Absolutely love seeing the Protect on the Incineroar. Again, a move pool option that has been rising in popularity ahead of the World Championships. And you can see why. It does allow you the opportunity to buy some time with that Incineroar. And Charizard coming out of its Dynamax turns now, it has obviously taken a turn of sleep here. So it's going to be waking up very soon. And you can see how much HP it's got remaining. Gastrodon, I mean, we've seen it have Yawn, we've seen it with Earth Power, Protect, that fourth move. Unless it's got a good way to deal with Charizard, paired up with the residual damage from the G-Max Wildfire, there's not a lot that Gastrodon can do. Yeah,
you're kind of hoping if you are Chongjun, you've got some sort of option like Recover here, and that would really help out. But we are just seeing a Flare Blitz come out from the Incineroar, getting a little bit more damage on, because the G-Max Wildfire residual damage is going to be so important to kind of help close this one up, as we do see an Earth Power. It is going to be enough, and the Incineroar going down. But Charizard taking another turn of sleep here, so these turns aren't going to be got one more turn potentially, or it could wake up. The sun leaving the field, though, is a really important thing for Eric as well, because these Hurricanes will be a little bit more accurate than they would have been in that direct sunlight, where you don't really want to be hitting that attack in with the sun on the field. But now that is probably the best option that we've seen from Eric to be able to utilize against the Gastrodon. So with the G-Max Wildfire residual damage and a Hurricane, it might be enough to pick up the knockout.
Yeah, I really like that point there about the Hurricane. I mean, it's an inaccurate move at the best of times, but even more so in the sun. So it's nice for Charizard to have a little bit of a less risk to connect in that regard, and I think it's the good move choice to go down against this Gastrodon. You're going to be dealing decent damage, and you obviously get the chance as well to potentially confuse that opposing Gastrodon.
Yeah, and you see the Protect there. The Charizard is now awake. It's going to be, taking potentially a Yawn this turn, but is the combination of a Hurricane. Oh, it misses! It misses! And the Yawn coming out here. So the match is going to be going on a little bit longer here for both players, and Chongjun doing everything he can to make sure that this Gastrodon is fighting back as hard as it can not to lose against this Charizard. So now it can go for a Protect, the Charizard will fall to sleep, and it'll all come down to how many turns of sleep this Charizard has, and does Gastrodon have enough offensively to take it down before it is able to wake up again.
I mean, we can see what it's doing here, right? It's trying to capitalize on those opportunities, get the Yawn, and using the leftovers as well to get that little bit of recovery, trying to put itself in a good position to potentially keep healing as those Charizard turns of sleep are happening, and also potentially as the Hurricane turns miss in the future. But from Eric's perspective, you just know exactly what you need to do. You need to wake up, and Ice Beam is the fourth move revealed on the Gastrodon. Let's see how much it does. Ooh, a little bit of damage. If you can keep logging them up in succession, you are eventually going to be able to get KO. But if Charizard's able to wake up, hit those Hurricanes, then Gastrodon's going to be in a difficult spot. But Charizard does wake up.
Gets that Hurricane off, and see how much damage this does. It does a good amount of damage, so maybe one more. And the confusion, that is huge, Lou. Is it going to hit itself in confusion this turn? If it does,
see. It breaks through, and it's able to go for the Ice Beam, and it will connect down onto that opposing Charizard. But it gets the freeze!
The freeze!
Oh my
Charizard
goodness!
is frozen. No way! This is insane. Crazy. So the Gastrodon here looking down and out, confused. It comes back, it hits through the confusion, gets that Ice Beam, freezes the Charizard, and it stays frozen. The Ice Beam doing about 40 HP damage each turn, roughly, and it hits through the confusion again.
Come on, little Gastrodon. It does. Oh, I think one more Ice Beam might be able to get the KO on this opposing Charizard. I mean, what a comeback for the little slug here for Chongjun's side. And I mean, if you can hear the venue, you can hear us. I am sure the casters can hear that heartbeat. Frozen again on this Charizard. Can the Gastrodon break through? Yes, and it goes for another Ice Beam.
Against all the odds, Chongjun has picked up the knockout against the Charizard. The free status there on the Charizard, enough to take it down there. Oh,
wow. I mean,
what a way to end that set, Lou.
Gastrodon, that is why you belong with me and Lee on this desk. What an absolute champion. Huge congratulations to Chongjun Peng. And I have to say, such commiserations to Eric. That endgame situation was played out perfectly. Both players knew exactly what they needed to do. But unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be for Eric. And, I feel so wholeheartedly sorry for him at the endgame of that situation. But knowing Eric, he's going to be able to regroup from this. He's going to be able to breathe, focus, and come into the next game. But what a way to kick off day 2.
Incredible.